How's it going, YouTube? Chase.actual here. Today in this video we're going to go over how to save user application data on the iPhone itself. So whenever we have an update to our application or we're not using it, it'll store the data in there. So this Xcode project here is just like the one we had in creating and deleting table view cells. The only difference is I've created a string variable that we're going to assign all of our input to. Let's go ahead and run this and demonstrate what happens if we were to update the app. So I've created two tables here. We're going to stop this and run it, which is analogous to simply updating the app. And when we get back in here, as we see, there's no data, nothing is saved. So to do that, we're going to implement a method of user defaults provided by Apple. So we're going to go back to our view controller here. We'll go ahead and stop this. And outside of our class, we'll create a global instance of this user defaults so that we can access it in any view controller as necessary. So let's go ahead and say, we'll call it defaults equal user defaults, open parentheses, suite name, and convention-wise, we're going to name it alongside com.our app name. So our app is saving data, so we'll just call it com.saving.data. Okay, and that's going to create a container that we can store data in and pull from as we need. So to do that, we are going to make two functions here. One for storing app data, and another one for getting app data that we have saved. So let's start with storing the data. So we're just going to say function, we'll call it store data. Won't take anything in. Okay, so how we use user defaults is we're going to say defaults dot set defaults, there you go, dot set, and we can choose any kind of value here. We're just going to use any, and this first parameter we're going to choose what we want to save. So we're going to call this rows, our string variable, and then we have a key in which we access this data. So I'll just call this past, or rather save data. Okay, and that is going to set this in our app container. After this, just to make sure everything's all good to go, we're going to say dot synchronize. Okay, and that is all we need for storing the data. Now things will get a little more complicated, though still relatively easy, for our get function, because whenever we first run this application, we're going to write it so it calls this get data function, but they haven't used the app before, so the store data has never been stored. So it's going to return a nil object, not even a empty string array like we have here, as we chose any parameter. So we're going to have to check if that's nil. So let's go ahead and assign a variable, say let our data equal, and then we'll grab the data from user defaults by using defaults dot value, and we can access it by the string here. It's key, so save data. And now we need to check if it's been used before. So we're going to say here, if data is not equal to nil, then we're going to assign it to our string variable. So we're going to say rows equals data, and since it's of type any, we're going to force cast this as a string array. And otherwise, if we haven't used that before, we're simply just not going to do anything. We're just going to bypass this function and it'll load up our rows. Okay, so now that we have those done, we're going to go here after our viewDidLoad method, and we're going to implement two other methods, a viewDidAppear and viewDidDisappear. So let's go to override function view, should pop up here. We're going to use the same method of super.viewDidAppear, set this to true, and when the view does appear, we're going to want to get the data, and override function view did disappear, Again, we'll call our super view did disappear. Set this to true. And whenever we get out of the view, we're going to want to store the data. Okay, now 2 more things before we go. Whenever we first load the app up, we're going to want to load the data. So let's go ahead and put it in this view did load. We're going to write this as get data. And also we're going to want to periodically save this, not just whenever we rely on this. We don't want to just rely on this view did appear function. So let's go down to our add cell function, and right after we present this view controller and take in the pop-up alert rather, and take in our text, we're going to go ahead and right after we add it to our array, we're going to save this data to make sure it to make sure it's uploaded and saved as we use the application. Alright, so let's go ahead and run our application here. And it's just like we're going to be using it for the first time. It'll load up a blank table view as we have here, and we'll go ahead and implement some cells with some random text. And we'll let's just delete one just for the heck of it to use all the instances. Okay, now let's go back to Xcode, stop, and run this again, and see if our data is pulled back. And boom, there we go. We now have implemented a way to save user data whenever not using the app or updating the application. So, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.